The rain hit my face like tiny needles, each drop colder than the last. I stood on the empty highway, my clothes soaked through, watching the red taillights of Blake's car disappear into the darkness. 37 miles from home. That's what the last road sign had said before he threw me out like garbage. My phone was dead. The screen had gone black an hour ago, and now it was just a useless piece of metal in my trembling hands. The storm was getting worse, and I could barely see 10 feet in front of me. Thunder rolled across the sky like an angry giant, and lightning lit up the empty road for just a second before everything went dark again. How did I get here? How did my life become this nightmare? It started this morning with something so small, so stupid. Blake had asked me to pick up his dry cleaning after work. Just one simple thing. But I forgot. I was so tired from staying up late finishing a presentation for my boss that it completely slipped my mind. When I walked through our apartment door at 6:30, Blake was sitting on the couch, still in his work clothes. His face was red, and I could see that vein in his forehead that always appeared when he was really angry. "Where's my uniform?" he asked, his voice quiet and dangerous. My stomach dropped. "Oh no, Blake, I'm so sorry. I completely forgot about the dry cleaning. I can go get it first thing tomorrow morning." He stood up slowly like a predator getting ready to pounce. "You forgot? You had one job, Natalia. One simple thing I asked you to do." "I know, and I'm really sorry. It was just such a busy day at work, and I don't want to hear your excuses," he shouted, making me jump. "Do you know what this means? I have to wear a dirty uniform to work tomorrow because my wife can't remember to do one simple task." I tried to stay calm, even though my heart was racing. "Blake, please. I said I was sorry. I'll go get it right now if you want." "Oh, now you want to fix it? After you've already ruined everything?" He grabbed his car keys from the table. "Get in the car." "What? Where are we going?" "You're going to learn what happens when you disappoint me." The car ride was the worst 30 minutes of my life. Blake drove fast, too fast for the rain that had started falling. He yelled at me the whole time, calling me useless, stupid, worthless. He said I was lucky he even married me, that no other man would put up with someone so careless and selfish. I sat in the passenger seat, trying not to cry, watching the familiar streets of our neighborhood disappear behind us. We drove further and further from home, into parts of the city I didn't recognize. "Blake, where are we going? Please, let's just go home and talk about this." "Talk?" He laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "I'm done talking, Natalia. You need to be taught a lesson." When he finally stopped the car, we were on a dark highway, surrounded by nothing but trees and empty fields. The rain was coming down harder now, drumming on the roof of the car like angry fists. "Get out," he said. "What? Blake, no, it's pouring rain and we're miles from—" "Get out!" he screamed, leaning across me to open my door. "Maybe walking home in the rain will help you remember to do what I ask next time." I couldn't believe this was happening. This was my husband, the man who had promised to love and protect me. "Blake, please. I'm sorry about the dry cleaning. I'll never forget again, I promise." But he was already pushing me out of the car. I stumbled onto the wet pavement, my work clothes immediately soaked through. "Blake, don't do this, please." He looked at me through the open car door, his eyes cold and empty. "You brought this on yourself, Natalia. Maybe next time you'll think twice before disappointing me." The door slammed shut, and I watched in horror as my husband drove away, leaving me alone in the storm. That's how I ended up here, shivering on an empty highway, wondering if anyone would ever find me. Then I heard it. The deep rumble of a powerful engine cutting through the rain. 3 years ago, Blake Morrison was the most charming man I had ever met. He had this smile that could light up a room and a way of making me feel like I was the only woman in the world. When he asked me to dance at my friend's wedding, I thought I was the luckiest girl alive. "You're beautiful," he whispered in my ear as we swayed to the music. "I can't believe someone hasn't snatched you up already." I laughed, feeling my cheeks turn red. Maybe I'm just picky. "Good," he said, pulling me closer. "That means I have a chance." Blake was everything I thought I wanted. He was strong, confident, and he seemed to really care about me. He would bring me flowers for no reason, call me just to hear my voice, and tell me I was perfect exactly as I was. But there was one thing I never told him. My family had money. A lot of money. My father, Harrison Brooks, owned a successful security company, and we lived in a big house in the nicest part of town. But I had learned early in life that when people found out about my family's wealth, they treated me differently. They either wanted something from me, or they assumed I was spoiled and stuck up. So when I met Blake, I decided to keep that part of my life secret. I got my own small apartment, drove an old car, and told him my father worked in an office somewhere. I wanted someone to love me for who I was, not for my family's money. Blake seemed perfect for that. He was a construction foreman, a working man who earned his money with his hands. He respected that I had my own job in marketing and never asked me for anything. For the first year, everything was wonderful. But slowly, things started to change. It began with small comments. "You don't need to see your friends so much," he would say. "We should spend more time together, just the two of us." At first, I thought it was sweet that he wanted to be with me all the time. Then he started criticizing my clothes. "That dress is too tight. You don't want other men looking at you, do you?" Or, "Why do you wear so much makeup? Are you trying to impress someone at work?" I started dressing differently, wearing looser clothes and less makeup. I told myself he was just looking out for me, that he loved me and didn't want other men to bother me. When we got married after dating for a year, I thought things would get better, but they got worse. Blake didn't like it when I visited my family. "Your father thinks he's better than me," he would say. "And your mother always looks at me like I'm not good enough for you." "That's not true, Blake. They like you. Then why do they live in that fancy house? Why does your father drive such an expensive car if he just works in an office?" I had to lie more and more to keep my secret. I told Blake my parents had inherited some money from my grandparents, that's why they lived nicely. He seemed to accept that, but he still didn't like me spending time with them. "We're married now, Natalia. I'm your family. You don't need them anymore." So I started visiting less. I stopped going to family dinners and holiday celebrations. When my father called, I would make excuses about being busy with work or tired from taking care of the house. My father noticed the change in me. During one of my rare visits, he pulled me aside. "Natalia, are you happy?" he asked, his eyes full of concern. "Of course, Dad." "Why would you ask that?" "You seem different, quieter, and you hardly ever come to see us anymore." "I'm just busy with married life. Blake needs me at home." But my father didn't look convinced. "If you ever need anything at all, you know you can call me, right?" I nodded, but I knew I wouldn't call. Blake had made it clear that asking my family for help would mean I didn't trust him to take care of me. And a good wife trusts her husband. By our second year of marriage, I had lost touch with most of my friends. Blake said they were a bad influence, that they were jealous of our happiness. I spent most of my time at home, cooking and cleaning and trying to make Blake happy. But nothing I did was ever good enough. The house was never clean enough. Dinner was never ready on time. I was never grateful enough for everything he did for me. "You're lucky I married you," became his favorite thing to say. No other man would put up with someone so careless. The morning started like any other Wednesday. Blake left for work at 6:30, slamming the door behind him without saying goodbye. He'd been in a bad mood for 3 days straight because his boss had yelled at him about a project that was running behind schedule. I got ready for work quietly, trying not to make any noise that might wake the neighbors. Blake always said I was too loud in the mornings, that I had no consideration for other people. I ate my breakfast standing up in the kitchen, looking out the window at the gray sky that promised rain later. At work, I threw myself into preparing for a big presentation. My boss had chosen me to pitch our new marketing campaign to an important client, and I wanted everything to be perfect. I stayed focused all day, double-checking every slide, every number, every detail. That's when I forgot about the dry cleaning. Blake had mentioned it the night before, right before bed. "Don't forget to pick up my work uniforms tomorrow," I need them for the rest of the week. Of course, I had said. I'll get them after work. But with the presentation consuming all my thoughts, it completely slipped my mind. I drove straight home, proud of how well my day had gone, excited to tell Blake about the compliments my boss had given me. The moment I walked through the door, I knew something was wrong. Blake was sitting on the couch, still in his dirty work clothes, staring at the TV without really watching it. His jaw was clenched, and his hands were balled into fists. "How was your day?" I asked carefully, setting down my purse. He didn't answer. He just kept staring at the TV. "Blake, is everything okay?" That's when he asked about his uniforms, and my world started falling apart. "You forgot," he said after I apologized. His voice was deadly quiet. "You forgot the one thing I asked you to do." "I can go get them right now," I offered, reaching for my car keys. "The dry cleaner stays open until 8. "It's 7:45, Natalia. They close in 15 minutes. My heart sank. "Then I'll go first thing in the morning before work. I'll have them to you by—" "I need them tonight," he exploded, jumping up from the couch. "I have to work tomorrow. Do you understand that? Some of us have real jobs with real responsibilities." I flinched at his tone. "Blake, please, I'm sorry, I had this big presentation today, and I was so focused on—" "Your presentation?" He laughed, but it was an ugly sound. "Your little marketing job is more important than your husband's needs?" "No, that's not what I meant. You just what? You just decided that whatever you were doing was more important than helping your family?" The word family hit me like a slap. Blake always used it when he wanted to make me feel guilty. "We were family," he would say, "and family comes first. Always." "You're right," I said, trying to calm him down. "I should have remembered. I'm sorry." But Blake was already grabbing his keys from the kitchen counter. "Get in the car." "What? Where are we going?" His eyes were cold when he looked at me. "You're going to learn what happens when you let your family down." The drive started in tense silence. I sat in the passenger seat, watching familiar streets pass by, hoping Blake would calm down and turn around. But as we drove further from our neighborhood, I realized this wasn't just a drive to cool off. "Blake, where are we going?" I asked as we got onto the highway. "Somewhere you can think about what you've done." I said I was sorry. "I'll get your uniforms first thing tomorrow morning, I promise." "Your promises don't mean anything, Natalia. You've proven that." The rain started as we drove into the countryside. At first it was just a light drizzle, but it quickly turned into a heavy downpour. Blake drove faster, his knuckles white as he gripped the steering wheel. "You think you're so smart with your college degree and your fancy job?" he said, his voice getting louder. "But you can't even remember to do one simple thing for your husband." "Blake, please slow down. The roads are getting slippery." "Don't tell me how to drive. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You think you know better than everyone else." I pressed myself against the passenger door, watching the speedometer climb higher. The windshield wipers couldn't keep up with the rain, and I could barely see the road ahead. "You're selfish, Natalia, selfish and ungrateful. Do you know how many women would love to have a husband who works as hard as I do?" When he finally pulled over on that dark, empty highway, I knew my life was about to change forever. The black truck's headlights cut through the rain like two bright eyes in the darkness. I squinted, trying to see who was inside, my heart pounding with a mixture of hope and fear. Out here, alone on this empty highway, anyone could be driving that truck. The vehicle slowed down and pulled over about 20 feet in front of me. The engine was powerful, much stronger than the small cars that had been passing by without stopping. Through the rain, I could see it was a big pickup truck, the kind that looked like it could handle any kind of weather or road. The driver's door opened, and a man stepped out. Even in the storm, I could tell he was tall and broad-shouldered. He moved with purpose, like someone who was used to being in control of difficult situations. He wore a dark jacket and walked toward me with steady, confident steps. "Natalia Brooks?" he called out over the sound of the rain. I froze. How did this stranger know my name? My maiden name, not Morrison. I hadn't used Brooks in 3 years, not since I married Blake. "Who are you?" I called back, taking a step backward. "How do you know my name?" The man came closer, and I could see his face in the glow of his truck's headlights. He looked to be in his 40s with short gray hair and kind but serious eyes. There was something calm about him, something that made me feel less afraid, even though I had no idea who he was. "My name is Vincent Sterling," he said, his voice gentle but clear. "Your father sent me." "My father?" I stared at him in confusion. "I don't understand. How do you know my father?" Vincent reached into his jacket, and I tensed up, but he only pulled out a phone. He showed me the screen, and I saw a picture of myself with my father from last Christmas, the last time I had visited my family. "Harrison Brooks hired me to keep you safe," Vincent explained. "I've been watching over you for the past 6 months." "Watching over me?" My voice came out as a whisper. "You mean you've been following me?" "Protecting you," he corrected gently. "Your father was worried about your marriage. He noticed changes in you, how you stopped visiting, how you seemed scared and sad when you did come around." I felt tears mixing with the rain on my face. He knew? He knew what Blake was doing to me? Vincent nodded. "He suspected. He hired me to make sure you were safe, to be nearby in case you ever needed help." He gestured toward the empty highway. "Like tonight." "But how did you know I was here? How did you find me?" "I was following at a distance when your husband drove you out here. I saw him force you out of the car." Vincent's jaw tightened. "I've been parked down the road, waiting for him to leave before I approached you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My father had known something was wrong. He had been trying to protect me, even when I thought I was completely alone. "I can't go back to him," I said suddenly, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. "I can't go back to Blake, not after this." "You don't have to," Vincent said firmly. "I'm here to take you somewhere safe. Your father is waiting for your call. But Blake will be so angry when he gets home and I'm not there. He'll what?" Vincent interrupted. "What will he do, Natalia?" I opened my mouth to defend Blake, the way I always did, but no words came out. What would Blake do? Yell at me? Call me names? Make me feel like everything was my fault? The same things he always did. "He can't hurt you anymore," Vincent said quietly. "Not while I'm here. Not while your family is protecting you." I started crying then, really crying. All the fear and loneliness and pain I had been holding inside for 3 years came pouring out. Vincent didn't try to stop me or tell me everything would be okay. He just stood there in the rain, patient and strong, like a wall between me and all the hurt. "I'm so tired," I whispered. "I'm so tired of being afraid." "Then let's get you out of this storm," Vincent said. "Let's get you home to your family." As I walked toward his truck, I realized that for the first time in years, I felt safe. Someone had been watching over me. Someone cared enough to make sure I wasn't alone. Blake thought he had taught me a lesson by leaving me on this highway. But the lesson I learned wasn't the one he intended. Vincent drove me to a small diner about 10 miles down the highway. It was warm and bright inside, a complete opposite to the cold, dark storm we had just escaped. He ordered me hot coffee and a sandwich, even though I said I wasn't hungry. My hands were still shaking as I wrapped them around the warm mug. "Your father is very worried about you," Vincent said gently, sitting across from me in the booth. "He's been waiting by his phone all evening." I stared down at my coffee, feeling ashamed. I haven't talked to him in 2 months. Blake said family visits were taking too much time away from our marriage. "That's not your fault, Natalia. Your father understands that you were being controlled." The word controlled hit me hard. I had never thought of it that way before. Blake always said he was just looking out for me, protecting me, helping me become a better wife. Vincent slid his phone across the table. "Call him. He needs to know you're safe." With trembling fingers, I dialed my father's number. He answered on the first ring. Natalia? Oh, thank God. Vincent told me what happened. Are you hurt? Hearing my father's voice broke something inside me. Dad, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I stayed away. I'm sorry I didn't tell you what was happening. Sweetheart, you have nothing to apologize for. Nothing at all. I'm just glad you're safe now. How long have you known? I asked, wiping tears from my eyes. There was a pause. I started getting worried about a year ago. You stopped coming to family dinners. When you did visit, you seemed different. Quieter. You jumped whenever your phone rang, like you were afraid of getting in trouble. I remembered those visits. Blake would call me constantly when I was at my parents' house, asking when I was coming home, telling me I was being rude by staying so long. I hired Vincent to keep an eye on you, my father continued. I wanted to make sure you were safe, but I also wanted to respect your choices. I hoped that if you needed help, you would ask for it. I didn't know how to ask, I whispered. Blake made me believe that everything was my fault, that I was lucky he put up with me. Natalia, listen to me very carefully. I had Vincent investigate Blake's background. What we found? It's not good. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? Blake Morrison has done this before. He's been married twice before you. Both marriages ended the same way, with him isolating and controlling his wives until they had nervous breakdowns. I felt sick. That's not possible. He told me I was his first real love. He said he had never wanted to marry anyone before me. He lied, sweetheart. His first wife, Amanda, ended up in the hospital after a nervous breakdown. His second wife, Jennifer, had to get a restraining order against him. Both women said he made them feel worthless and crazy. The diner seemed to spin around me. Everything Blake had told me about his past was a lie. The sweet, romantic story of how he had been waiting his whole life to find the right woman. All of it was fake. There's more, my father said gently. Vincent found out that Blake specifically targeted you after learning about our family's wealth. What? How could he know about that? I never told him. He has a friend who works at the country club where your cousin's wedding was held. That's where you first met Blake, remember? His friend told him about the Brooks family, about our business, about our money. I felt like I couldn't breathe. So he never loved me at all? I'm afraid not, sweetheart. He saw you as an opportunity. He's been slowly working to gain access to our family's money. Vincent found evidence that Blake has been researching our business, our properties, our bank accounts. Everything made sense now. Why Blake had been so charming at first. Why he had pushed for a quick marriage. Why he had been asking more and more questions about my family's finances lately. He's been planning this for 3 years, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Yes. And tonight, when he left you on that highway, he thought he was breaking you down completely. He expected you to come home grateful and desperate, ready to do anything to keep him happy. I looked across the table at Vincent, who had been listening quietly. What happens now? Now, my father said, we make sure Blake Morrison never hurts you or anyone else again. For the first time in 3 years, I felt something I had almost forgotten. Hope. Blake pulled into our apartment complex at 11:30 that night, feeling satisfied with himself. The rain had stopped, and he was sure his lesson had worked perfectly. By now, Natalia would have walked at least 10 miles in the storm, soaked and terrified, learning what happened when she disappointed him. He imagined her stumbling through the front door, crying and apologetic, begging for his forgiveness. She would promise to never forget anything again, to be a better wife, to put his needs first always. Maybe he would forgive her right away, or maybe he would make her wait a little longer, let her worry about whether he still wanted to be married to someone so careless. Blake climbed the stairs to their second-floor apartment, already planning what he would say. He would be firm, but loving, explaining that he only did this because he cared about her, because he wanted their marriage to work. But when he opened the front door, the apartment was dark and empty. "Natalia?" he called out, flipping on the lights. "Natalia, are you here?" Silence. Blake walked through the small apartment, checking the bedroom, the bathroom, the kitchen. No sign of her anywhere. Her purse wasn't by the door where she always left it. Her work clothes weren't in the laundry basket. Maybe she was still walking home. 37 miles was a long way, especially for someone as weak and soft as Natalia. She probably had to stop and rest, maybe find shelter from the rain. Blake turned on the TV and settled onto the couch to wait. She would be home soon, and when she arrived, she would be so grateful to see him, so sorry for disappointing him. But midnight came and went. Then 1 o'clock. Then 2. Blake started to feel uneasy. Even walking slowly, Natalia should have made it home by now. What if something had happened to her? What if someone had picked her up? What if she was hurt? He tried calling her phone, but it went straight to voicemail. He called again and again, but got the same result every time. By 3 in the morning, Blake was pacing the apartment, his confidence turning to worry, then to fear. Where was she? Why wasn't she home yet? That's when he saw the envelope on the kitchen counter. His name was written on the front in Natalia's careful handwriting. With shaking hands, Blake tore it open and pulled out a single sheet of paper. "Blake," the letter began, "I know everything." His blood turned to ice. "I know about Amanda and Jennifer. I know about your friend at the country club who told you about my family's money. I know that our entire marriage was a lie, that you never loved me, that you only married me to get access to my father's wealth." Blake's legs gave out, and he collapsed into a kitchen chair. How could she know about his ex-wives? How could she know about his plan? "I know you thought leaving me on that highway would break me completely," the letter continued. "You thought I would come home grateful and desperate, ready to give you anything you wanted. But you made one mistake, Blake. You forgot that my father loves me and would never let anything happen to me." Blake's hands were shaking so hard he could barely hold the paper. "By the time you read this, I will be somewhere safe, surrounded by people who actually care about me. I will never be coming back to this apartment. I will never be coming back to you." The letter was signed simply, Natalia Brooks. Not Natalia Morrison. Natalia Brooks. Blake threw the letter across the room and grabbed his phone, dialing Natalia's number again. Still voicemail. He tried her work number, but of course, no one would be there at 3 in the morning. He called her father's house, but the phone just rang and rang. No answer. Panic was setting in now. 3 years of careful planning, 3 years of slowly gaining Natalia's trust and breaking down her confidence, all ruined in one night. How had she found out about his past? How had she learned about his real reasons for marrying her? Blake paced the apartment like a caged animal, his mind racing. He had to find her. He had to explain, to convince her that she was wrong, that he really did love her. He had to get her back before she could do anything to hurt him. But deep down, Blake knew the truth. His perfect plan had fallen apart. The scared, broken woman he thought he had created was gone. And for the first time in his life, Blake Morrison was the one who was afraid. 3 days later, Blake sat in his apartment, unshaven and desperate. He hadn't slept, hadn't eaten much, and had called in sick to work. Every time his phone rang, he hoped it would be Natalia, but it never was. On Thursday morning, there was a knock at his door. Blake rushed to answer it, thinking maybe Natalia had finally come home. Instead, he found 2 men in expensive suits standing in the hallway. "Blake Morrison?" the taller man asked. "Yes, that's me. You're being served with divorce papers and a restraining order." The man handed Blake a thick envelope. "You're also being served with a cease and desist order regarding any contact with Natalia Brooks or her family." Blake's hands shook as he took the papers. "Wait, you can't just—" "Have a good day, sir," the second man said, and they walked away. Blake slammed the door and tore open the envelope. The legal papers were thick and official, filled with words he didn't understand. But he understood enough. Natalia was divorcing him. She was legally changing her name back to Brooks, and if he tried to contact her in any way, he would be arrested. There was also a letter from a law firm he had never heard of, explaining that they had evidence of his fraudulent marriage, his history of emotional abuse, and his plans to steal money from the Brooks family. They were prepared to file criminal charges if he didn't cooperate with the divorce proceedings. Blake threw the papers across the room. This couldn't be happening. Natalia was supposed to be weak, supposed to be broken. She wasn't supposed to fight back. His phone rang, and Blake grabbed it without looking at the caller ID. Natalia? Natalia, is that you? No, Mr. Morrison. This is Harrison Brooks. Blake's blood turned cold. Natalia's father had never spoken to him directly before. Their few conversations had been brief and polite at family gatherings. Mr. Brooks, I can explain everything. Natalia is confused. She doesn't understand. I understand perfectly. Harrison's voice was calm, but deadly serious. I understand that you targeted my daughter because of our family's wealth. I understand that you've been emotionally abusing her for 3 years. And I understand that you left her alone on a highway in a storm because you thought it would make her more obedient. That's not what happened. I was just, Mr. Morrison, let me be very clear. My daughter is safe now, and she will stay safe. You will sign the divorce papers without contest. You will not attempt to contact her in any way. You will not come near her workplace, her family, or any of her friends. Blake tried to sound threatening. And what if I don't? What if I decide to fight this? Harrison's laugh was cold. Then you'll discover exactly how much power and influence the Brooks family has in this city. I have evidence of your previous marriages, your pattern of abuse, and your fraudulent intentions. I can make sure you never work in construction again. I can make sure every person in this city knows exactly what kind of man you are. You can't do that. You can't ruin my life just because I protected my daughter from a predator. Watch me. The line went dead. Blake stared at his phone, realizing for the first time that he had made a terrible mistake. He had thought Natalia was just a quiet, weak woman from a middle-class family. He had no idea he was dealing with people who had the resources and determination to destroy him. Over the next few weeks, Blake's world fell apart completely. His boss fired him after receiving a call about his character issues. His landlord refused to renew his lease. Even his few friends stopped returning his calls after they learned about his treatment of Natalia. Blake signed the divorce papers without a fight. He had no choice. Meanwhile, Natalia was rebuilding her life. She moved back into her childhood bedroom temporarily while looking for her own place. She started seeing a therapist to help her heal from the emotional abuse. Most importantly, she began to remember who she was before Blake had tried to break her spirit. Vincent continued working as her bodyguard, but now it was just a precaution. Blake had learned his lesson. He knew that the Brooks family was not to be messed with. Blake's final mistake had been underestimating the woman he tried to destroy. He thought leaving Natalia on that highway would be the moment she finally broke completely. Instead, it was the moment she found her strength again, and it was the beginning of the end for Blake Morrison.